The Deep Space Monitoring Station on Europa was quiet that night, just like any other. Tom Reed sat at his console, sipping cold coffee and watching the usual stream of data from the outer solar system. After 8 years of watching empty space, he had grown used to the monotony. But tonight was different. The signal came at 2:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. At first, it looked like a simple anomaly, a slight fluctuation in the background radiation beyond Pluto's orbit. But as Reed watched, the pattern became clearer. This wasn't random noise. "Control, this is Station Europa 7, he called, his hand slightly shaking as he pressed the comm button. "I'm picking up some unusual energy signatures. You might want to take a look at this." Within hours, the Earth Defense Fleet's flagship, the Horizon, was preparing for departure. Captain Robert James stood on the bridge, watching his crew work with practiced efficiency. At 53, he was one of the most experienced officers in the fleet, though he had never expected to be the one making humanity's first contact with alien life. "All systems ready, Captain," his first officer reported. "Course is set for the anomaly." James nodded. "Take us out. Steady it as she goes." The Horizon moved through space with grace, its fusion drives pushing it far beyond the orbit of Pluto. As they approached the source of the signals, the ship's sensors began picking up more detail. What they found made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Stretched out before them was a fleet of ships, not just a few, but hundreds of them. They were massive, elegant vessels that dwarfed the Horizon. But something was wrong. The ships were dark, drifting aimlessly through space like leaves on a pond. "Life signs?" James asked, breaking the silence. "Massive readings, sir," the sensor officer replied. "But they're faint. Most appear to be in some form of suspended animation. And sir, their power signatures are almost non-existent. These ships are running on emergency power only." James moved closer to the main viewport, studying the alien vessels. Their design was unlike anything humanity had ever conceived. Smooth, organic shapes that seemed to flow like liquid metal. But now, they floated helplessly in the void. Their glory dimmed. "Send out the first contact signal," he ordered. "Universal mathematics, just like in training." The crew transmitted the simple sequence, the first 10 prime numbers, followed by the value of p to 10 decimal places. It was humanity's way of saying, "We are intelligent, and we want to talk." Minutes passed like hours. Then, from the nearest ship, a weak signal responded. The same mathematical sequence, followed by something new. A simple pattern of light pulses from one of the ship's few working beacons. "They're using binary, sir," the communications officer said excitedly. "Basic concepts. Help. Power failing. 2 million lives." James felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Here was an advanced civilization, clearly in desperate need, and humanity might be their only hope. The decision he would make next would either mark humanity's first step into a larger galactic community or leave them, forever known as the species that turned their backs on those in need. "Send them this message," he said firmly. "We are the Earth Defense Fleet. We see you, we hear you, and we will help you." As the message was transmitted, James looked around at his crew. In their eyes, he saw not fear of the unknown, but determination. This was what humanity had always done best, facing challenges head-on, helping those in need, solving the impossible problems. "Contact Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we're going to need every ship we can spare, every engineer who can hold a wrench, and every power cell we can manufacture. Tell them humanity has guests, and they need our help." The response from the alien fleet was immediate. Their running lights, weak as they were, pulsed in a pattern that needed no translation. It was gratitude, pure and simple. As the Horizon moved closer to the massive fleet, James couldn't help but smile. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what they could do, and they were going to do it in style. 3 days after first contact, Captain James stood in Earth's Central Command, Facing the gathered leaders of the world's major nations, the holographic displays behind him showed the massive alien fleet still drifting in the darkness of space. "The situation is critical," he explained, his voice steady but urgent. "These people fled their home system after it was attacked by an aggressive species they call the Hunters. Their entire civilization, 2 million souls, is in those ships." The room fell silent as images appeared on the screen. They showed the alien refugees' life support systems, glowing a dangerous red. Next to them, a countdown timer ticked away steadily. "Their main reactors are dead," James continued. "The backup systems are failing. In less than 30 days, we will witness the largest mass death in known history, unless we act now." The Russian president leaned forward. "How do we know this isn't a trick? They could be an invasion force." James pressed a button, and new images appeared. They showed alien children in frozen sleep, families huddled together in cryopods, elders whose faces seemed to show the same worry that humans knew so well. "We've confirmed their story," he said. "Our deep space telescopes can see the remains of their home system. It's been completely destroyed. These people are running for their lives." The Chinese premier spoke next. "Even if we believe them, how can we help? Their technology is far beyond ours. We don't even understand their power systems." Dr. Wilson, Earth's leading power systems engineer, stepped forward. She had spent the last 3 days studying the alien ships. "Their main reactors use antimatter, technology we're centuries away from mastering. But their basic power needs aren't so different from ours. Light, heat, life support, these are universal needs." She brought up diagrams of Earth's fusion reactors and solar collection systems. "We can't give them back their antimatter reactors, but we can give them power. Our way. Human way." The room erupted in discussion. Resources would be needed. Factories would have to be converted. The entire global economy would feel the strain. "The cost will be enormous," the American president said, rubbing his temples. "And the cost of doing nothing?" James asked quietly. He showed one final image, a simulation of what would happen when the life support systems failed. 2 million lives, extinguished in silence. In the back of the room, a junior aide raised his hand. When nodded to, he spoke with surprising confidence. "My grandfather was on a sinking ship in the Pacific during World War II. A Japanese destroyer saved his entire crew, even though they were enemies. He always said that some things go beyond politics or differences. Some things are just about being human." The room grew quiet again. The world leaders looked at each other, then at the images of the sleeping refugees. Finally, the Secretary General of the UN stood up. "Captain James, you have 48 hours to present us with a complete rescue plan. Dr. Wilson, begin coordinating with global industry immediately. We will need everything we can produce." As the meeting ended, James received an urgent message from the horizon. The aliens had managed to wake one of their leaders from cryo-sleep to speak with Earth's representatives. The aliens' message was simple but powerful. "We have traveled through 12 star systems, fleeing the Hunters. Every civilization we encountered turned us away, fearing to draw the Hunters' attention. You are the first to even offer help. Whatever happens, know that your species has shown a greatness we will never forget." Back on his ship that night, James looked out at the powerless alien fleet. Their ships were dark giants against the stars, filled with families who had lost everything but hope. In 30 days, they would either be dead or they would experience humanity's finest hour. He touched his command screen, sending out orders across Earth's fleet. "All ships, all stations. This is Captain James. We have work to do." Across the solar system, humanity began to move. Factories spun up to full power. Ships changed course. Engineers began drafting plans. A species that had spent most of its history fighting itself was about to show the galaxy what they could do when they worked together. The rescue mission had begun. The main engineering bay of the horizon buzzed with activity. Dr. Wilson stood at the center of organized chaos, surrounded by both human engineers and 3 awakened alien technicians. Holographic displays showed the internal systems of both species ships side by side. "The problem isn't just power generation," she explained to Captain James, pointing to the alien ship systems. "It's compatibility. Their systems run on completely different principles than ours." One of the alien technicians, who had chosen the simple name Blue due to his skin color, moved his long fingers across the display. Despite the language barrier, he had quickly learned to use human technology. "Look here," Dr. Wilson continued, highlighting a section. "Their power distribution systems are based on quantum fields. Ours use conventional electrical current. It's like trying to power a quantum computer with a potato battery." James watched as human and alien engineers worked together, sharing ideas through mathematics and diagrams. "But you have a plan." Dr. Wilson smiled. "We always have a plan. That's what humans do best. We adapt." She brought up a new diagram. "We can't replicate their antimatter technology, but we can build something new. A hybrid system." The display showed a massive solar array, bigger than anything humans had built before. Connected to it was a complex series of power converters and storage systems. "We'll build huge solar collectors," she explained. "The arrays will be twice the size of their ships. But they'll work. We'll use our fusion reactors as backup power. The tricky part is converting our power into something their systems can use." Blue made a series of clicking sounds, which their basic translator converted. "Dangerous. Much power. Could explode." "He's right," Dr. Wilson admitted. "We're basically building a power adapter between 2 civilizations. One mistake, one power surge, and we could lose a ship full of refugees." James looked at the sleeping faces in the cryopods visible through the nearby viewport. "Then we don't make mistakes. How long to build the first prototype?" 3 days for the converter. The solar arrays will take longer. Every factory on Earth is already retooling to make the parts we need. Across Earth, humanity's industrial might had shifted into high gear. Shipyards that once built cargo vessels now constructed massive solar panels. Electronics factories worked around the clock producing power converters. Space stations were converted into assembly points. In orbit around Earth, the first prototype took shape. It looked crude compared to the elegant alien ships, a massive flat array of solar panels connected to a central hub full of human technology. But it represented humanity's best hope of saving 2 million lives. "Beginning powered-up sequence," Dr. Wilson announced. The prototype hummed to life, collecting energy from the sun. Next to it, a small section of an alien ship waited, its systems dark. Blue and his fellow technicians watched nervously as power began to flow through the converter. Human engineers held their breath. The alien ship's systems flickered, then began to glow with a soft light. "Power flow stable," someone called out. "They're accepting the energy." The cheer that went up in the engineering bay was deafening. Humans and aliens alike celebrated. The first test had worked. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't advanced, but it would save lives. "How many of these can we build in 25 days? James asked. Dr. Wilson checked her calculations. "If we use every factory, every shipyard, and every worker willing to help, maybe enough. It'll be close." James looked at the prototype again. It wasn't pretty. Solar panels stretched out like giant wings, power cables tangled like spaghetti, converter boxes clustered like barnacles. But it worked. Humans had taken their simple technology and found a way to help a far more advanced civilization. "Send the designs to every manufacturing center," he ordered. "Tell them we need these built yesterday." As he watched the alien ship's lights grow stronger, James thought about humanity's place in the galaxy. They might not have antimatter drives or quantum power systems, but they had something just as valuable: the ability to face impossible problems and find simple solutions. Blue approached him, making the gesture they had learned meant gratitude. "Your people," the alien said through the translator, "are surprising." James smiled. "You haven't seen anything yet." 20 days remained until total system failure. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Every television screen showed the countdown timer. Every news channel tracked the progress of the rescue mission. Humanity had found a common purpose. In orbit above Earth, workers in spacesuits swarmed over half-built solar arrays. The construction site stretched for miles, pieces of the massive power systems taking shape against the backdrop of stars. Another ship just arrived from India. The traffic controller reported. 4 more arrays ready for assembly. The space around Earth had become a hive of activity. Ships from every nation carried parts and workers. Old rivalries were forgotten. Chinese engineers worked alongside American technicians. Russian cosmonauts helped guide Japanese cargo ships into position. Down on Earth, the transformation was even more dramatic. Factory workers volunteered for extra shifts. Retired engineers came back to work. Students skipped classes to help in assembly lines. The entire planet had become one giant workshop. In New York, an old manufacturing plant ran day and night. Mark Turner, who had worked there for 30 years, watched as solar panels rolled off the line. "My grandson asked me why we're working so hard to help aliens," he told a reporter. "I told him because someday we might need help too. And this is what humans do. We help." The reporter looked at the factory floor, where workers from 3 shifts had refused to go home. "How long can you keep up this pace?" Mark smiled, his tired face showing both exhaustion and pride. "As long as it takes. Did you see the pictures of their children? Those kids in the cryopods. That's all I need to keep going." Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Brazil, farming communities donated their solar panels. In Africa, mines worked overtime to provide raw materials. In Australia, truck drivers volunteered to transport parts to launch sites. On the horizon, Captain James received hourly updates. The numbers were impressive, but time was still their enemy. He watched as another completed array was towed toward the refugee fleet. "How many ships can we power?" he asked Dr. Wilson. She checked her tablet. 57 are now receiving power from our arrays. But we need to speed up. At this rate, we'll lose some of the outer ships. Just then, his communication officer interrupted. "Sir, you need to see this." The main screen showed images from around the world. In London, people were bringing household solar panels to collection points. In Tokyo, crowds gathered to help load cargo ships. In Moscow, citizens lined up to volunteer for space construction crews. "It's like this everywhere, sir," the officer said. "People want to help. They're donating anything that might be useful." Blue, who had become a permanent fixture on the bridge, watched the images with his large eyes. "Your people give up their own power to help strangers." "That's humanity for you," James replied. "We might not have the most advanced technology, but we know what matters." The alien made a sound that the translator couldn't quite handle, but it seemed like wonder. A new message came in from Earth Command. The world's governments had agreed to reduce power consumption by 30% to redirect energy to the manufacturing effort. Cities would dim their lights. Factories not involved in the rescue would shut down. People would manage with less so that others might live. "Tell them what their sacrifices mean," Blue said suddenly. "Show them." James understood. He authorized the release of more images from the refugee ships, not just of sleeping families this time, but of their art, their music, their stories. The aliens shared what they could of their culture, their hopes, their dreams. The response was immediate. Production increased again. More volunteers came forward. Humanity wasn't just saving lives now. They were saving an entire civilization's worth of beauty and knowledge. In orbit, another array came online. More lights flickered to life in the refugee fleet. Humanity's simple solution was working, one ship at a time. "We're going to make it," Dr. Wilson said, checking the latest numbers. "It's going to be close, but we're going to make it." James nodded, watching Earth's lights dim as his species chose to shine a light for others instead. Sometimes the greatest achievements came not from advanced technology, but from the simple choice to help. 10 days remained on the countdown clock. The space around the refugee fleet had transformed into the largest construction site in human history. Hundreds of ships moved between the massive alien vessels, carrying parts and workers. Dr. Wilson floated in her spacesuit beside the power converter of the latest array. Through her helmet camera, she guided teams across the fleet. "Remember, these connections have to be perfect," she said, pointing to the critical junction where human technology met alien systems. One surge and we could lose thousands of lives. Inside the nearest refugee ship, human engineers worked alongside more awakened alien technicians. The ship's corridors were huge, designed for beings larger than humans, making the work more challenging. But they adapted, using small automated drones to reach difficult spots. "Power flow starting," called out a technician. Everyone held their breath as energy from the solar array began flowing through the converters. The ship's systems hummed to life, internal lights gradually brightening. Blue, monitoring from his station, made an excited series of clicks. Life support stabilizing. Cryopods secure. 10,000 lives. Safe. A cheer went up through the communication channels. Another ship saved. Another small victory in their race against time. But they couldn't celebrate long. There were still hundreds more ships waiting. Captain James coordinated the operation from the Horizons Bridge, now turned into a central command center. Screens showed the status of every ship in the refugee fleet, too many still glowing red with warning signals. "Status report," he called out. 112 ships now have stable power, his officer replied. 341 still critical. New arrays are coming online every 2 hours, but we're detecting increasing strain on the early converters. Just then, alarms blared. One of the first power converters was showing signs of overload. If it failed, it would take the ship's life support with it. "Get me a line to that ship," James ordered. Dr. Wilson was already moving, her suit's thrusters pushing her toward the failing converter. "The connections are holding, but the converter can't handle the load. We need to reduce power flow, or it's going to blow." But reducing power meant risking the lives in cryosleep. They needed a solution. Fast. Then a voice came over the comm, one of the alien technicians. "Your arrays collect more power than needed. Split the flow. One array can power 2 ships if we balance carefully." It was risky. The systems weren't designed for this, but they were out of options. "Do it," James ordered. "Start with the stable ships, redirect excess power to the critical ones." Engineers scrambled to modify the power networks. Human ingenuity met alien knowledge as they rebuilt the power grid in space, creating new pathways between ships that were never meant to connect. Hours passed in tense work. Across the fleet, power levels fluctuated as they balanced the load. Some ships dimmed temporarily, others brightened, but none failed. "It's working," Dr. Wilson reported, checking the readings. "We can power more ships with the arrays we have. We just need to connect them differently." The new approach changed everything. Instead of each array powering one ship, they created a network. Ships that needed less power shared with those that needed more. The refugee fleet was becoming interconnected in a way neither species had planned. Blue watched the power flow diagrams with amazement. "Our ships never connected like this. Each was independent. But together we're stronger," James finished. "That's another human lesson." The work continued around the clock. More arrays came online. More ships were connected to the growing power network. The countdown clock still ticked, but now they were ahead of it. In the cryopods, millions of aliens slept safely, unaware that their rescue had led to something unprecedented. 2 species working as one, sharing knowledge, solving problems together. "We're going to make it," Dr. Wilson said, watching another ship's lights come on. "And we're learning so much in the process." James nodded. Humanity had set out to save a stranded fleet. Instead, they were helping to build something new, a bridge between civilizations, powered by sunlight and determination. 5 days before they were set to complete the power grid, the alert came. Deep space sensors picked up energy signatures, massive ones, moving fast toward the solar system. On the horizon's bridge, Captain James stared at the readings. "How many ships?" 20 warships, his sensor officer replied. "Matching the descriptions of hunter vessels. They're following the refugee trail." The news spread quickly through the fleet. The hunters, the force that had destroyed the refugees' home world, had found their trail. Earth had a choice to make. In the emergency meeting that followed, Earth's leaders faced their biggest decision yet. The Russian president spoke first. "We could hide the refugees in the outer system. Our ships could delay the hunters while they escape again." "No more running," Blue said. His translator crackled with emotion. "We have run through 12 systems, lost people in each escape, and now, here, when humans have shown us such kindness." Captain James stepped forward. "We've invested too much to let them run. Earth Defense Fleet is ready. We may not have their advanced weapons, but we have something they don't expect. Humans who won't back down." The Chinese premier studied the tactical displays. "Their ships are bigger, more advanced. How can we fight them?" James smiled. "The same way we solved the power crisis. With human ingenuity." He brought up new diagrams. "Look at what we've built. A massive power grid connecting hundreds of ships. Now, what if we use that power differently?" Dr. Wilson caught on immediately. "The converter network. We could modify it. Channel power not just for life support, but for shields and weapons. The refugee ships have defensive systems. They just lacked power to use them." The plan took shape quickly. Humanity's simple solar arrays could power both human and alien defenses. Earth's ships might be smaller, but they were numerous and highly maneuverable. And they had one more advantage. The hunters weren't expecting resistance. Earth's fleet moved into position. The refugee ships, now mostly powered, formed a defensive sphere. Human vessels took up positions between them, their crews ready despite their fear. This would be humanity's first interstellar battle. "All ships, all stations," James broadcast. "The people who come to attack us believe in taking what they want through force. They've never faced a species willing to stand and fight for strangers. Today, we show them what humans do when someone threatens those under our protection." The first hunter ships appeared at the edge of the system. They were enormous, their black hulls covered in weapon ports. Their message was simple: surrender the refugees. Earth's response came from every ship in the combined fleet: no. The hunters, used to terrorizing less defended worlds, weren't prepared for what happened next. As they moved to attack, the refugee fleet's defensive systems came to life. Powered by simple solar energy and human fusion reactors, Earth's ships darted between the larger vessels, their smaller size making them hard to target. "They're trying to break through Sector 7, came the call. "Redirect power to those shields," James ordered. The makeshift power grid responded, energy flowing where it was needed most. Human and alien technology working together, protecting each other. The hunter ships fired their main weapons, only to find their energy absorbed by the powered-up refugee shields. They tried to target Earth's vessels, but the smaller ships were too quick, too numerous. "They're splitting up," the tactical officer reported, "trying to find weak points in our defense." But there were no weak points. Every gap they found was quickly filled by darting Earth ships. Every attack they launched was met by shields powered by Earth's sun. And slowly the hunters began to realize something that would soon spread through the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated. After 3 hours of failed attacks, the hunter fleet pulled back. Their losses were minimal, but they had failed to achieve their goal. For the first time, they had met a species willing to stand against them. As the hunter ships retreated, cheers erupted across the combined fleet. Human and alien crews celebrated together. They had done more than just defend against an attack. They had shown that cooperation was stronger than conquest. "They'll be back," Blue said quietly. James nodded. "Yes, but next time, we'll be even more ready. He looked at the refugee fleet, now permanently linked to Earth's power grid, and we'll face them together. 1 month after the battle, the solar system had changed forever. The refugee fleet, once dark and dying, now gleamed with life. Solar arrays stretched between the ships like bridges of light, a permanent reminder of how two civilizations had come together. Captain James stood on the observation deck of the newly built Earth Refugee Command Center, watching ships move between Earth and the fleet. What had started as an emergency response had become something much more. The last family group woke from cryo-sleep today, Blue reported, joining him at the window. The alien's translator now spoke with near-perfect clarity, one of many improvements they had made together. 2 million people, all safe. James nodded. How are they adjusting? Better than we hoped. Your people's kindness makes it easier. Blue gestured to the scene below them, where human and alien children played together in the station's artificial gravity. The refugees had begun sharing their technology, as promised. But it wasn't just advanced machines they brought. It was art, music, stories, and dreams. Earth's cities now hosted alien cultural centers. Schools taught both species' languages. The galaxy had become a smaller, friendlier place. Dr. Wilson's team had made breakthrough after breakthrough. The power-sharing system they'd built in desperation had evolved into something revolutionary. Ships could now travel further, colonies could be built in darker regions of space, and energy could be shared across vast distances. The hunters are still out there, James said, checking the deep space monitors that now extended far beyond Pluto. Yes, Blue agreed, but they're spreading the word. Earth is not to be taken lightly. A species that can save an entire civilization with solar panels and determination. That's not a species you want to fight. News had indeed spread through the galaxy. Other races had begun reaching out to Earth, not for advanced technology, but for human ingenuity. The species that had solved an impossible problem with simple tools was becoming known as one to watch, to learn from. In orbit around Earth, construction continued on new projects. The refugee ships were being modified, no longer just survival vessels but homes. Their crews worked alongside humans, teaching and learning. Some had even joined Earth's defense forces, bringing their knowledge to help protect their new home. The Council wants to speak with you, Blue said. They're ready to make the announcement. James followed him to the command center. On the main screen, the refugee leaders appeared alongside Earth's representatives. The Refugee Council speaker stepped forward. People of Earth, the speaker began. You found us in our darkest hour. You didn't just save our lives. You showed us a new way to live. Today, we formally request permission to make our home here, to become part of your system, your society, your future. The UN Secretary-General stood. The vote was unanimous. Welcome home. Cheers erupted throughout the station, throughout the fleet, throughout Earth. Two civilizations, brought together by crisis, choosing to face the future as one. Later that evening, James found himself back on the Horizon's bridge. The ship that had made first contact was being refitted with hybrid technology, human ingenuity combined with alien advancement. Ready for your next mission, Captain? His first officer asked. James looked at his crew, now a mix of both species. On his screens, he could see the combined fleet preparing for their first joint exploration mission. They would carry with them the lesson that had saved millions, that sometimes the simplest solutions could solve the biggest problems. You know what the refugees call us now? He asked. The people who light the darkness. Not bad for a species that still uses solar power. Beyond the ship's windows, the solar arrays continued their endless work, powering two civilizations. They weren't pretty, they weren't advanced, but they had changed the course of history. Send word to the fleet, James ordered. It's time to show the rest of the galaxy what humanity can do. As the horizon moved out, Earth's sun caught the solar arrays, making them shine like beacons. They had built them to save lives, but they had achieved something more. They had built a bridge between the stars, powered by human determination and lit by the simple light of their home star. The rescue was over. The adventure was just beginning.